to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video as I'm going to attempt to do my first 7-round mock draft for the New York Giants, and maybe I'll do another one of these as the draft gets closer. I tried to be as realistic as possible, guys that I think could potentially be there when the New York Giants pick in each of these draft selections. Now, I didn't have any trades in this mock draft. You could certainly say that I could have coupled a few 7th-round picks, paired it with a 6th, maybe moved up to get a 5th or a 4th, or maybe even traded up to a earlier 3rd-round pick, something the New York Giants could certainly elect to do, or trade down from the 1st-round pick. But I stood pat here, and I picked, guys that I would be looking at, that I think the New York Giants will be looking at with each of these selections. Now, the New York Giants, we say it all the time, some of their biggest needs, well, on the offense, it's obviously an offensive tackle, a center, a wide receiver, specifically a tall one. On the defense, they could use a middle linebacker that could cover. They could use a pass rusher. They could use some help in the secondary. I would say those are their biggest needs going into this draft. And, of course, you could always use some depth at those positions, along with maybe a big thumper at the running back position. But I did my best to, simulate some of the guys that after doing a lot of research, that I could see the New York Giants taking a good, hard, strong look at in this year's draft. So we're going to jump right into it. And my 1st-round pick should be no surprise. I just did a mock draft. And this, I want to reiterate, is this pick is not even necessarily who I would take, even though I do really like Tristan Wirfs. But you could sub in the offensive tackle of your liking here. Tristan Wirfs, Jedrick Wills, Andrew Thomas, Mekhi Becton, whoever your preference is and you want, sub them in here. But I think the Giants are going tackle after what I saw in free agency. You have a young quarterback with Daniel Jones. You have a young running back with Saquon Barkley. You're trying to build the team around those two players. I think an improved offensive line in turn, if you could run the ball effectively, will help the defense by keeping them fresh. And I don't think you're going to be able to fix all the needs on this team in 1 year. I think it's going to be a 2-year process in terms of bringing in draft picks and improving both sides of the ball. But after this, you will see I will start to attack the defensive side of the football. If you're somebody who wants Isaiah Simmons and you think the Giants will take Isaiah Simmons at 4, well, put Isaiah Simmons in here, and then that would completely change the draft. For instance, in the 2nd round, I would not go with who I went with. I would definitely take an offensive tackle there, and we'll see, and then obviously they would affect the draft differently. And maybe I'll do a 7-round mock draft where they take Simmons and show you the difference. But in this one, I've got them going offensive tackle. I've got them going Tristan Wirfs. They've been linked to Wirfs for months by several people, and that was before the combine. Wirfs, of course, had one of the most impressive combines in recent history for an offensive tackle. He ran like a 4.86. He had a great vertical jump, great everywhere, every drill. Andrew Thomas is certainly a very safe guy here as well, along with Jedrick Wills and Becton, and they are probably better potential left tackle. So you could certainly argue that the Giants could go there, and we're going to have to wait and see on draft night. But right now, today, if you ask me, I think they're going tackle, and if I had to guess, it'll be Tristan Wirfs. Next pick we're going to have here in the 2nd round is a guy I really like, and I think he's going to fit what the New York Giants are looking to do. Now, will he get here? I don't know. I think it's distinctly possible that even the New England Patriots at 23 could take Bowen, but I've seen several mocks where he falls to the Giants at 36. If he's there, I'd be honestly surprised if the Giants did not take him. I think he fits exactly what the New York Giants are trying to do on defense. He's a very versatile edge rusher, and he was very productive at the collegiate level. Of course, he also has ties with Bielema in Wisconsin, something everybody always likes to talk about. You saw Bielema at the Pro Day. And like I said, he's really good at getting after the quarterback. I think he had double-digit sacks last year, and he actually had a great coverage grade, something that a lot of people overlook with him. He had a 91 coverage grade in college last year at Wisconsin. So he certainly has the ability to do both. He had a pretty strong combine in which I think he ran a 4.65 40. He's a guy I definitely have my eye on in the 2nd round. Some other potential options here. Well, you could go wide receiver potentially if a guy falls there that shouldn't. Some of the guys I went over, in my video yesterday. You could definitely go with a center here as well. That's definitely a pressing need for the New York Giants, along with maybe a safety, a guy like Grant Delpit. There's a lot of potential suitors here, but I went with Bowen. He's a guy I really like, especially if we go offensive line in the 1st round. Next pick in the back end of the 3rd round. Now, he may not be there at pick number 99. I've seen some mocks where he is. I've seen some mocks where he's not. He's usually going, anywhere between early 3rd to early 4th round, in that range. Troy Dye out of Oregon. Now, this is certainly a guy you could trade up for. If you're somebody who doesn't think he'll be there at 99, maybe the Giants could, couple some picks, move up and get him. But if they're not going with Isaiah Simmons in the 1st round, Troy Dye is not nearly as good as him, but he's a similar type of athlete. Both came in as safeties. He's a little bit more undersized than Simmons. I think he's 225 pounds. He needs to bulk up a little bit more. He definitely struggles at getting off blockers, but in the back end of the third round, this is a guy that I think has a very high ceiling. He is tremendous in coverage, a very good coverage linebacker. Like I said, he came in as a safety, and I think he's a guy you could move around on the defense, very similar to that of Isaiah Simmons. Is he as good? No, I'm not telling you he's as good. There's a reason he's going in the third round. He also had a broken thumb last year, which is why I think he's dropped in some mocks. If you go back and look at a lot of projections coming into this year, a lot of people had him higher than where he's initially going. So keep an eye out on him. He was unable to participate in the combine due to his injuries, but Dye is a guy that could definitely be on the Giants' radar, being that is a huge need. We talk about it all the time. We need a guy that could cover, that could take away the tight end, could take away the slot wide receiver. Well, if you look at Dye's highlights and his tape, he is a guy that's capable of doing that, in my opinion. Needs to work on some things, but in that department, in terms of coverage in the slot and things of that nature at the linebacker position, Dye could be a guy the New York Giants are certainly looking at. Next guy we're going to look at in the fourth round is Matt Hennessy. And Matt Hennessy has ties to the New York Giants. He, well, not the Giants specifically, but he grew up in New Jersey, went to Don Bosco Prep. One of the better graded centers in this year's draft. He's probably ranked fifth or so, and this is obviously a need for the New York Giants. Will he come in and be the starter if we draft him? Maybe not. Maybe you start Gates there, but Hennessy is at least a guy that's at a bare minimum a depth piece at that position and could evolve into a starter at that position over time, and maybe he even wins it going into the season. Probably not. I would say he probably needs a year to learn, and we'll have to wait and see, but this is a guy you want to keep an eye on. He's a little bit undersized. He's 6'4", 307 pounds, but very technically skilled from everything you read, and he's a high-effort player, something that I think Dave Gettleman often looks at. You looked at that in last year's draft. They drafted a lot of effort players, a lot of football players, not necessarily the greatest athletes. I think Hennessy could make a lot of sense if they elect to wait until round 4 for the center if he is there on the board. And by most mocks I'm seeing, this is the range where he's going. So look for Hennessy possibly to the Giants if they wait till round 4 at the center position. Next guy we're going to talk about is the wide receiver. Now, I could definitely want wide receiver in the fourth. And if I did, I might have looked at a guy like Michael Pittman if he was there. Pittman could go in the third, though. He could even go in the second. I've seen in some mock drafts. So I don't even necessarily know if he'd be there at 99. But Pittman's a guy I've expressed I really like. And if he's there at 99, I would not be opposed at all to the Giants drafting him. He's got great hands. I think he'd fit what the New York Giants are looking to do. But in this scenario, I'm actually going to have them taking Isaiah Hodgins out of Oregon State, standing at 6'4", tall wide receiver. Exactly what I think the New York Giants are looking for. That's what they want, right? In this type of system, that's the type of wide receiver you're looking for, and you're getting pretty good value here in the fifth round. Guy that could go up and catch the 50-50. Doesn't have a lot of holes, to his game in that aspect, and that's the type of receiver that I think the New York Giants need. And I think he could produce in the fifth round, similar to a guy we drafted last year. So, next guy we're going to talk about is a guy that really helped out his stock. A lot of people didn't think he would be maybe even an undrafted free agent going into the combine. He really performed better than a lot of people would have thought. Derek Tuska, not known as the best athlete. He is a high-effort guy, a football player, but he actually had a really strong combine, and now he's being mocked in the fifth or sixth round in a lot of mock drafts. This is the type of player that I could definitely see the New York Giants taking a good, hard, strong look at. He's projected to be a good 3-4 edge rusher. Keep your eye out for Derek Tuska on draft night. He may not be there in the sixth. Maybe they would take him in the fifth. I don't know. Giants may not take him, but he's definitely a guy that the New York Giants could be looking for, and maybe could add, a guy that could get after the quarterback for this defense for years to come out of North Dakota State. He had 29.5 sacks for his career. Next guy we're going to talk about, our first seventh-round pick, and I could have definitely went with Dillon, the big-bodied running back. I almost did in the sixth. Instead, I went with Tuska. Obviously, if Dillon was here, I would take Dillon. He's a running back I've talked a lot about. And, you could definitely sub him in there in the sixth round or maybe even the fifth round if you want to take him. But because they already, brought in a backup running back in free agency that I think will have a role, I think maybe they wait until the seventh round and Dillon's probably not there, in which case I'm going to have them taking Darius Anderson out of TCU, standing at 5'11", 208 pounds. His stock went down a little bit due to his combine. He ran a 4.61, but everything I read, people say he looks much faster on tape. He's good at running between the tackles, so Could be a guy that the Giants look to add possibly in the 7th round for some depth in that backfield. If he's there, I like Darius Anderson as a potential running back prospect. Next player we're going to look at here is Colby Parkinson, the 3-year tight end out of Stanford. Now, I've been on record as saying that I think the Giants eventually are going to move on from Evan Ingram. He is known as more of a receiving tight end than a blocker. We, of course, added Toifolo, the blocking tight end in free agency. We have a couple of guys that are definitely known more for blocking than being a threat in the pass catching game. Parkinson is known to be decent in down the field blocking, but in terms of pass blocking, not the best. That's definitely something he lacks in. But he's an athlete at 6'7", 250 pounds, a big target, has a big catch radius, and certainly a guy that maybe the Giants could be interested in is as a potential weapon down the road. To supplant Evan Ingram if they decide to move on from Ingram in a year or two. So wanted to point him out. I don't know if the Giants are going to take him or not, but it's certainly an interesting prospect to keep an eye on come draft night. Next guy we're going to look at is the son of John Runyon. John Runyon, of course, was a phenomenal tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles, former All-Pro offensive lineman. John, his son, he's undersized, but he's another tough football player. He played tackle at Michigan. A lot of people project him to be a guard in the NFL. We need some depth. I say it all the time. We need young offensive linemen, young hog mollies for the New York Giants. Well, John Runyon could be that. He'd add some depth to the New York Giants in that department. So I had the Giants taking him with their third of 4 7th-round picks. And then finally, the last one I had the New York Giants taking was the best long snapper in the country. And maybe he would be here, maybe he wouldn't. I can't imagine a long snapper going earlier than maybe the back end of the 6th round. But he is the best. We need a long snapper. Zach Diassi, of course, has moved on. And that is Blake Ferguson out of LSU. He won the award for the best long snapper in the country, or whatever it is. And he's been very consistent from everything I've read during his time there with the Tigers. And I suspect he'll probably be a 7th-round draft pick. And being that that's a need that often goes overlooked, it's important. I mean, we lost the 2002 playoff game against the San Francisco 49ers due to the fact that we couldn't snap the ball properly. So Blake Ferguson out of LSU will be my last selection. And yeah, like I said, there was a number of other players I could have mocked. I just wanted to give you guys a quick rundown of some players that I think the New York Giants could be looking at, go over some of the team needs, and where I could potentially see them taking those positions. The wide receiver position, I think, will go anywhere between rounds 3 and 5. The center position, I could see going anywhere between rounds 2 and 4, maybe 2 and 5. Tackle, I think 2nd at the latest, you'll see a tackle come off the board depending on what they do in the 1st round, whether or not they go with Isaiah Simmons. And I would look for them to try to get some edge rushers. I had them mocked to take 2 in this draft, and a coverage linebacker. Certainly something they could do. Definitely could have taken a safety as well. Troy Dye may project to be that hybrid player that could play some safety. So just want to get a mock draft up for you guys as the draft's getting closer, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what players you're looking at. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.